Okay, folks, Captain Paul here. Good morning, and it's week 72. Wow, that's been a long time, long run here watching these videos. I hope you guys are enjoying the Great America's Great Loop series on Saturday mornings. There, I've been putting those out, and I think next week we leave Charleston and head up to the Dismal Swamp and over into New York and stuff like that. So I hope you guys are watching those videos. Anyway, this week I want to talk about autopilot, how important it is on a boat, because I just did I just did some yacht training with Weldon, and you guys out here looking at these boats right here, how important is the autopilot? And this is just from my experience of over 20,000 nautical miles of what I think about having an autopilot, especially on one of these old trawlers. I want to break it down for you before I get started here and tell you that the autopilot, especially for you guys that have hydraulic steering, is probably one of the simplest systems on your boat. It's just a 12-volt motor, because I've installed a few of these. It's a 12-volt motor with a red and a black wire, a positive and a negative, and it just moves fluid from one side to the other. So, and that's all it does. But then it gets a little more complicated because the brain box has got to tell it which way to move that fluid to keep it going straight down the line, whether it's a compass course or nothing. A good autopilot will hold you true on your course, and it allows for current, wind, and rain. I personally, this is me personally, I use my autopilot almost instinctively from the time, once I get the boat out of the slip here. You can see right here, I'll show you where I'm at here. I'm in Boot Key Harbor right here. This is an overview of it. And once I've cleared the boats and once I've cleared the harbor, my autopilot is pretty much on. And even when I was with Weldon last week, when we got out even into the ICW there, we had it in autopilot most of the time. Now, does that mean you can leave your helm station and just let the boat automatically drive? No, not at all. Somebody needs to be at the helm at all times. You need to have a watch and somebody looking at all times. Just nothing beats it. And then you need to have good access to getting the autopilot turned on and turned off in case of an emergency while you're at the helm. And a couple ways you can do that is you can have these pads. They put these pads at each one of the helm stations. So if you have an upper and lower helm, you should have two pads. Or you can have a pad and you can have a remote like I've got. I've got the pads at my upper station, I've got the pad down at my lower station, and I have the remote. So I have the best of all worlds with my autopilot. So when I was boating America's Great Loop, one of the boats that I actually boated with quite a bit, he didn't have autopilot on his boat. And I asked him, I said, why wouldn't you? He had a Carver. It was like the same size as mine, about a 45 foot Carver. And he didn't have autopilot. And I'm saying, how do you drive the boat without autopilot? He goes, I just hand steer it through everything. And I go, so 6,000 miles of hand steering the boat? Which he didn't make America's Great Loop. They made it up to, I believe, the Chesapeake or something like that, and then I think they turned around and came back. But having an autopilot, nothing. I was joking with Weldon several times out there, and I do it with everybody that gets on any boats that I'm on. What beats an autopilot? And the answer to that question is nothing, because nothing can outsteer your autopilot if it's working correctly. And so, for you guys that don't have the experience of boating, for you guys that are just getting into it, anybody that's wanting to live the American dream and head out to the Bahamas or head on America's Great Loop, or, just go cruising, especially on these slow boats, I want to call them, because there's a difference between a go fast and a slow boat. I want my autopilot on both. But, when you're doing 8 knots and you're just sitting there relentlessly at the steering wheel, it's monotonous. It's slow. You can't enjoy when you're sitting there working the wheel. And we, as humans, we always oversteer the boat. But being able to see, like when you're going down the Mississippi, I just remember this from doing America's Great Loop. We would have the autopilot set, and here's this eagle, coming down, and we were able to enjoy that few moments of the eagle coming down, and instead of steering the boat. Now, that being said, we're at the helm station, we're paying attention, looking around us all constantly at all times, because you got to disengage if a barge is coming around you. You've got to disengage. You know, if you get into any traffic, you got to disengage if you're going under a bridge. For all these reasons, or going through a lock or anything, you disengage your autopilot. And you got to be paying attention to that, especially in the ICW or on the river system going down, or up for that fact. So you know the autopilot is still work. It's just less work. You're not sitting there with your hand on the wheel just steering back and forth. You're letting something else, a mechanical device, control that for you, and they do work nice. I've took a boat across the Gulf one time and it didn't have autopilot, and that'll be my last time that I ever try and hand steer a boat for that kind of period, especially in any type of weather. This is just my opinion when you guys are out there looking at these boats, because Grand Banks has had the cable steering for, I can't remember the cutoff years. Anybody wants to mention that in the comments, like the 36, the 42, and all that. I want to say it's all the way up into the 2000, somewhere around there, before they switched to hydraulic. But a lot of the 80s, some of the earlier 70s versions, some of those all have mechanical. On my first trawler that I had, I'll show you a picture of it right here, Tesoro, it had mechanical steering, but it had autopilot. So you can have autopilot with the chain mechanical steering. It's just a different setup. It is as simple, because the electric motor gets connected into the chain, and then it still has a rudder indicator. It still has everything on it, the same as the hydraulic. It's just a little bit easier install for the hydraulic ones. So when you're looking at especially you're looking at these older boats, you know, that's something you got to ask yourself. What do you want to deal with on the steering part of it? And does the boat have autopilot? Because if it has autopilot, then how old is the autopilot? Like for you guys that follow the channel for a long time, you know that I took the 36 Grand Banks around, and it had the old autopilot on it, and it worked. I would have to do my little dance. I'd hit it twice, 3 times here, twice over here, and then engage it, and it worked, but was as efficient as the newer stuff. And that boat has now been upgraded with state-of-the-art autopilot on it. And if anybody talked to Jim today, he would say, wow, there is no difference. It's a huge difference, and it's worth every penny of it. So how old, when you're looking at these old trawlers, how old is the autopilot? And then how well does it work? Really pay attention to that on your sea trial, because you'll be thanking me later for you guys that have a good autopilot, will be thanking me saying, yes, this is very nice, versus the guys that don't have the autopilot. So it's just a subject that I had it in my notes to talk about this subject. Next week, I want to get back into the boating market here. We'll talk about some of it, because we're going to have some boats close. The 29 Ranger has the contracts fallen through. The 27 has people are that one's sold, and then but it hasn't closed yet. I think that'll close next week, so we should know next week for sure if it closes. But I'm seeing a little bit of softening in the market. But I'm also seeing my phone start to ring again as we approaching summer now, with everybody looking at different boats. Anyway, peace out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you're watching those great loops. You guys dreaming about doing a great loop, or anything like that? I think when I get done with the great loop, I'm gonna jump it right into the Bahamas with that series for that Saturday morning video. Anyway, Captain Paul, peace out. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and I thank you guys so much. I can't say thank you enough about this channel and the support and the love from you guys. Make sure you leave your comments down below. Thanks again. God bless. Have a good evening. Bye.